Hello everybody and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. We're going to talk about water today. Water is essential for health, and if you don't have enough of it, you can even die within a very short period of time. The infant body is comprised of 75% water, and even in old age, the human body is 55% water. In spite of this, most people don't drink enough water, and dehydration has become a very common condition. Now, there are several reasons for this, including misunderstandings about the amount of water that's actually needed every day, the amount of water in foods, how much other liquids count toward the body's need for water. Additionally, there really aren't very good methods for measuring hydration status in the average person. Urinalysis measures recent fluid intake, but not hydration, for example. Under normal circumstances, the best way to measure hydration status is to pay attention to how much water you consume on a daily basis. Now, most humans rely on thirst to guide their fluid intake, but research shows that thirst is a pretty poor indicator of the need for water, which results in most humans becoming chronically dehydrated. Aging results in lower thirst sensation, and research shows that older people drink less water and all other liquids following even water deprivation than younger people do. The body has very intricate systems that control water balance regardless of how much fluid you take in. When a person becomes dehydrated, for example, water is moved from inside the cells to extracellular areas. This causes the cells to shrink in size and then leads to a whole series of events that includes a signal to drink and also a signal that's sent to the kidneys to begin concentrating waste in smaller amounts of fluid. The kidneys can function under less than optimal circumstances, as in this case, not having enough water, but eventually this results in unnecessary wear and tear on the tissues, which can be exacerbated if a person consumes a lot of toxins that are eliminated through the kidneys, because the kidneys are forced to concentrate all that toxic waste into smaller and smaller amounts of urine. Drinking enough water regularly is one way that you can protect your kidneys and keep them functioning well into old age. There are two aspects of thirst to be considered. One is triggered by the loss of fluid, which signals thirst and should be followed by water intake. The other is triggered by the loss of sodium, which signals a craving for salt and should be followed by salt intake. The shrinking of cells due to dehydration increases the craving for salt, since salt, along with potassium, regulates water levels in the body. Sweating during athletic activity or just being outside in hot weather can trigger the need for both salt and water, and the craving for both of those things. Dehydration can cause a whole lot of problems, including an individual feeling hotter than normal due to increases in core temperature. Sweating and the evaporation of sweat is how the body cools itself when the temperature is hot, or if you're even indoors but exercising. If water and electrolyte loss from sweating is not replaced, several things happen. Sweat production is lowered, the body loses its ability to cool. Core temperature increases, and the individual can feel even intolerably hot. But this isn't the only problem. Plasma volume is reduced since plasma has a high water content. Blood viscosity increases, cardiac output is reduced, and cortisol production is increased since the body perceives itself to be in a stressful state. This cascade of events can often be much more pronounced in children. And the elderly's situation becomes much more serious much more quickly because the kidneys in older people are significantly less able to make necessary adjustments in order to conserve fluid levels than younger people can. An important contributor to dehydration is people tend to consume all kinds of other things: coffee, tea, soft drinks, milk, sports drinks, alcohol, instead of water. Now, this type of fluid intake is generally not so much driven by thirst, but by things like taste. In fact, people often express a dislike for water because it doesn't have any taste. Most of the beverages that I've mentioned contain calories, which most people can't afford, since most people in our country are overweight or obese, and many of these things, like coffee, are dehydrating and alcohol rather than hydrating. Drinking more water instead of other beverages has been shown to reduce the risk of weight gain, particularly in children. In one randomized study conducted in Germany and involving 2,950 children, the kids were provided with education about the importance of drinking water, were given water bottles, and also access to drinking fountains with filtered water. The kids who were in the group that got the education and the water bottles drank 1.1 more glasses of water per day, and their risk of excessive weight gain was reduced by 31%. Athletes can suffer the most negative consequences of dehydration. There is some evidence that the thirst mechanism may not be adequate for regulating water intake during exercise. Thus, people often continue to exercise in a dehydrated state, which not only results in all of the physiological changes that aren't so good that I already mentioned, but also decreased blood flow to muscles, reduced endurance, more fatigue, and diminishing returns for exercise. What's really interesting is that it only takes about 2% loss of fluid to cause all of these issues that I've been talking about. Cognitive function can be affected by dehydration, particularly in the elderly. In many cases, dehydration presents as dementia, and it's been known to be a factor in confusion, which is very common in nursing home patients. Another common manifestation of dehydration is headache, even migraine headaches, due to dehydration of the brain and reduced total plasma volume. Studies have shown that drinking water can provide pain relief within 30 minutes to 3 hours, which is a better alternative to taking NSAIDs for pain relief because there are enormous side effects of these drugs. Stay tuned next week. We're going to have a bigger discussion about NSAIDs. Based on this information, it really is advisable for people to drink water regularly than rely on thirst as a barometer or the indication of the need for fluid intake. Americans get about 22% of their water needs from food, while Europeans who eat a little bit more fruits and vegetables get slightly more. An adult loses about 10 cups of water a day through urine, feces, breathing, sweating, and can expect to take in an average of 2 cups from food. This leaves about 8 cups, which has to come from drinking water. Now, sedentary adults, even sedentary adults who don't sweat, they don't move, are told that they are estimated to need 1.5 liters of water a day. So, of course, active adults need more, which is where our recommendation to consume 64 ounces of water per day comes in. And again, for kids, 1/2 of their weight in ounces. Children don't need to drink as much as full-grown adults. I mentioned this before, but the best way to make sure you're hydrated is to measure your intake, and one of the best ways to do that is to fill water bottles every day. People tend to think that they drink more water than they do, and I hear this all the time when people come in to show us food journals, and they'll say, I thought I was doing a whole lot better on the water drinking until I really started writing it down, and gosh, it really wasn't so good. So you don't want to walk around in a constant state of chronic dehydration. In most cases, it's not going to cause an immediate health crisis, but instead just chronic and worsening health over time. Your kidneys don't function as well. Your plasma volume is reduced. Your blood is a little more viscous. And all these things over time add up and can really chip away at your health status. So hopefully this has inspired you to make sure you take in enough water every day. Other fluids, not a substitute. All right, that's all for today. That's in fact all for the week. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you next week with more news.